Angie, you are live on the air with the Rattlecast. Thanks so much for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Your poem today, 50 Words, was one of the poems, is the kind of poem that I imagined we'd be publishing a lot of when I started Poets Respond over 7 years ago now. Because it's such an interesting story that people might not have heard. And to sort of immortalize that into a poem is something that's really worth doing, I think. Do you want to explain, first of all, a little bit about the story that inspired this poem?
Sure. I live in San Francisco, and in our local paper, the San Francisco Chronicle, there was a short article about doctors at the University of California in San Francisco who were working with a patient who had been paralyzed since the age of 20 after a terrible car accident and then a stroke. And they had been working to help him regain a kind of speech in that they figured out how to implant a sensor in his brain, and electrodes would pick up sort of residual or forgotten movements in his vocal tract and translate that into words on a computer screen. And I just thought, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And then there was an article in the New York Times that went into more depth, and actually a radio show on our local PBS channel, because everyone that I've talked to is just fascinated by this story, which just seems so miraculous.
Yeah, it really does. And I also thought it was interesting too because from a poetry perspective, because one of the things that's interesting about poetry is that when you read language, you're using those same, even if you read to yourself, if you sub-vocalize, you're using those same muscles. I remember reading a paper about this 20 years ago maybe, but you're using the same muscles that you would be if you were speaking as you're reading silently to yourself, and you're just sort of shut off the connection to your mouth. And so,
Yeah.
and that's the way that when you read a poem, you end up like inhabiting the speaker, like the speaker becomes you, even if you don't read it out loud, which has always been fascinating to me. But then to use
It's
this same,
true.
these same muscle neural network to regain speech is just amazing.
Yeah, it really is. It's so amazing. And I just started thinking about, well, what words would I want? And I love that they worked with this patient, and he was such an integral part of the team to come up with words that were meaningful to him. So I could just imagine how wonderful it would be to sort of move from using, a pointer attached to
Mm-hmm.
a baseball hat that is so onerous to something that, is a lot faster. Plus,
Yeah, yeah.
um, this patient is actually the same age as my son. So, I just felt this connection. And I agree about poetry. Well, poetry is words, right? It's language. We're so connected to language and what it means. And as you say, Tim, when we read out loud, or even when we're reading silently, it just does something. And when we read poems aloud, it has a whole other meaning, I think a deeper meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
really interesting.
yeah, yeah. Can you talk anything about how this poem was constructed? I mean, like imagining that those 50 words seems to be the impetus, and then you kind of rolled from it with there. Is that how I imagine it? Is that accurate?
That is truly accurate. It's so funny because I wrote this poem very, very quickly. It just kind of poured out of me, and I submitted to you guys often. Poems that I've anguished over, and this one just came, and I thought, all right, well, I think this is a Poets Respond poem. Let me send it off. Let's see what happens.
Well, that's great. Well, I'm so glad you did, and you keep sending them. It's just amazing when the magic happens, and it really does sometimes.
It, it does. It's true. When the muse is with you, it's wonderful. So
Do you want to
thank
go
you
ahead?
so much.
Yeah. Do you want to go ahead and read it?
I would love to. Thank you. 50 words for Pancho. Imagine 50 words to describe your world, to define yourself, your heart. Imagine your thoughts trapped like thousands of blue jays, caught in a too small cage, wings battering iron bars. Imagine no movement, decades of stillness. You are inside this body, this corset of bones and muscles, slack, useless. You move your head and neck in residual ticks, hunt and peck so slowly it hurts you, but you persevere. You type and you learn English, you learn French, you graduate from high school. All this after your accident at age 20. All this after your devastating stroke. All this after you can no longer move. Imagine brilliant doctors who implant a sensor in your brain, and those 128 electrodes pick up forgotten movements of your vocal cords, your larynx, your throat. Imagine a cable like a new umbilical cord linking your brain to the computer that starts writing words, your words. The algorithm learns as you do, and suddenly you have 50 words of speech racing from your brain waves to the screen. What words do you need? Hunger, thirst, hurt, good, bad, love, soul, heart. Hug me, kiss me, family, perseverance, hope. Tell me you love me, miracles. Thank you.
Yeah, excellent poem. Thanks so much for sharing that. It was 50 Words by Angie Minkin. Thanks, Angie.
Thanks so much, Tim. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good night. Thanks for coming on.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.